together? Okay.
Are we ready for all?
Sure, it was
Yes, good, all right. We did it. Good evening, let me call our Finance Committee meeting to order for the Village of Broadview. The time is 7:36 p.m. We'll call to order, we'll do the roll call. Good evening, I'm Trustee Judy Abraham, Chair of the Finance Committee. To my left is
Trustee Senior.
Trustee John Tierney.
Tim Hicks.
And the Budget Director, Tom Hood.
Okay. At this time, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. If we can have everybody's cell phones on silence. Thank you, residents, and welcome residents, and welcome to our viewing audience at home. We appreciate the support. First thing on the agenda, and it's the only thing on the agenda, is our water rate continuation from the previous meeting. So that's going to be handled by Director Hicks and Director Hood. You want us to?
Yeah. Yeah, probably down. So what I did is we could
Right,
just
'cause
go
you're gonna use
through
the
slides
projection?
and then focus that to it.
All right.
Want me to just do it, or you want to?
Put on this, and we could take notes.
Good evening, everyone. This is a continuation of our last finance meeting. And what we've done for tonight is we've taken the presentation that we had last month, and we've incorporated some of the questions that you guys have had into this presentation. And I'll just kind of run through the whole thing, which is recapping for people that might not have been here last time. And then we'll spend a little more time on the new slides. Okay, so, let me figure out what's going on with the projector, and then we'll go. There we go. Okay. As we had mentioned last time, our water and sewage fund basically accounts for all the operations for sewage and collection systems and the water distribution system. It's a business-like fund that basically is designed to cover providing the service to the village. Okay, that's called an enterprise fund. And I basically covered that, okay? The components are the revenues and expenses. Our revenues are our water usage and our sewer usage, and plus a couple small ones like penalties. And our expenses consist of the water fees charged to us from the Joint Water Agency, maintenance and repair of the water sewer system, administrative costs, and debt service costs. Now, as you can see, this is the current status of the, this is a 2016. This is a historical, I'm sorry, it is the current status, it's working backwards. It's the status of the fund balance as each year ends. And historically, the water fund has carried a big fund balance because of two reasons. A lot of the assets that are in the distribution system are capitalized. So there is a lot of fixed assets in the water fund. And that's what we're referring to as the water tank, the pipes in the streets, and it builds up any cash that we might make. historically, we're looking at revenue versus cost of water, and we've seen that each year it seems that we're making a less and less. And 15 was a year when it went way down. There was an increase in 15 that popped it back up, but it's then started the downward trend again. Now, there's a lot of things that will affect the revenue on our water sales, and one of them is the amount of water we're selling. But if we look over the last 10 years, it's pretty steady. It's in that 450 to 500,000 unit range. There's only one year in which it went down, and that was an anomaly. So what could cause this decreasing of our profit margin? Leaks. We're buying money from the Broadview Westchester Joint Water Agency, and we're losing some of it through old meters that might not be reading correctly, through main breaks, through many different things that could happen that would cause water to disappear from the water tower to your house. Disconnect. Tim, do you remember what we said disconnect for the villages and water agency system? I don't know. But there's several issues. There were issues that had brought up, investigated, and solved. One of them was the large industrial customers' meters being read correctly, and that was investigated, and it was found out there was no problem. So if historically you look at our water rate increases for the last 10 years, the top line, VOB, Village of Broadview, it shows what the water rates went up to our customers. The next system, or the next line, is the Broadview Westchester Joint Water District. That's what the cost went up to us. And Chicago sells the water to the water district. That's what the water district's costs went up. So as you look at each one of these years, you can see that Chicago raised it, the water agency raised it, but we didn't raise it as much as they did, or we didn't raise it at all. A couple years stand out specifically. 2012, the agency raised it 19%, we only went up 8%. The next year, the agency raised it 12%, we only went up 6%, etc. Until 15, which you guys might recall from a couple slides back when there was a big drop. That's when we implemented the raise and passed the full raise on to the residents. But then we haven't raised it since. So essentially, that water rate increase has been absorbed by the village. And another way of saying that is that we have, we've raised our rates by 56%, while the city of Chicago raised their rates by 262%, and the agency raised its rates by 232%. So the village is essentially subsidizing the water rates in the tune of about 176% for the past 10 years. When you look at our water rates compared to surrounding villages, we are near the bottom. Now, the proposed increase is basically catching up on all of those increases over the past 10 years that we didn't pass on. And the proposal that's up here is for is the first year is an immediate increase of 4.55%, then an increase in year 2 of 10.47%, year 3 9.48%, year 4 8.66%, and year 5 7.97%, which will get us back to, if we started and implemented all of those raises, all of those increases that were asked, if we had done it when it happened, your rates would have walked up to this by now. So one of the questions that came up was, well, what's that going to do to your profit margin? How is that going to help the village? And I can see that that's hard to read. It's much easier on the on the Excel spreadsheet. Let me see. But let me point out that what this is, these three components are our main revenues: water sales, the sewage charges, and the penalties. This is the cash that we raise each year from the activity in the water fund. This line is the cost that we're paying Broadview Westchester Joint Water District. And the difference between there is how much money we get to keep to cover all of our expenses, which include the billing expenses for running the department, some of the salary expenses, maintenance expense such as the jetting and rotting of the sewer lines, the videotaping of the storm sewers, any kind of replacement, whether it be a water main break or something just has to be replaced. It covers machinery and tools within the water department. There's a lot of expenses. So the money that we take in above what we pay for the water, way back in 2008, whoops, going the wrong way. For every dollar we spent, we got $1.69 back. So it went $1.69, $1.66, $1.62, $1.25, $1.73. This is an abnormal year, 2015. There was some other issues going on here. The reason this is lower also made this one higher. They gave us a credit for some of the charges they charged us in this year. That credit was reflected in this year. But what you can see is the trend is going from 1.6 down to basically 51 cents over those 10 years. So every dollar we spend, instead of getting $1.69, now we're only getting 51. It's another illustration of why we need to do this. We're not producing enough cash flow off our water operations to maintain them and expand them and keep them in great shape. So the second question, and I think this was yours, Shirley, when we do this, what will happen? Well, what I did is I multiplied those price increases times the average unit sales, and what we'll do is we'll stop that downward trend, and in that first year, we'll tell you what, this is so small, I gotta look here. It's gonna go up a small amount to 59, 68, 77, 86, and 94. So for every dollar we spend after this, we should be getting 94 cents back in. So we will get there, and notice that this isn't even the profit margin we were making back in 2010, 11, 12, but it is at a rate that we can accomplish some of the goals that we want to do. And then the next question was, well, what are we going to do with this increased cash flow? What are we going to do with this money when it comes in? Currently, last year, was it 200,000, Tim? Does that sound right? The increase for this? Yeah, I'm going to say 200,000. It's 200 and change. But that's down from 800 to 600,000 a year years ago. So as we do this, we should see more cash coming in. Well, one of the main projects that we're including in our first part of the overall plan is a comprehensive maintenance program for the water tank. For those, I'll tell you what, I won't go into that now because I got a slide on it. The second one is replacing the 16-inch main between the pumping station and 17th Avenue. For those of you that might not remember, we've already replaced it from 17th to 25. So now we will be replacing one of our main transmission lines from the pumping station all the way to 25th Avenue when this is complete. Behind, the alley behind Roosevelt to the north, between 18th and 25th, is where a 10-inch main that supplies all the northern section of town. That is another area that is going to be replaced. And finally, the 25th Avenue main, the main between 25th Avenue and Harvard, which is running up just north of Roosevelt here. These were mains that our engineering firm had pointed out we were having a lot of breaks on, we're having a lot of problems on, and it was a good place to start. Because basically we're building up on the backbone, and think of our water system as, I don't know, a rib cage. It's got a sturdy backbone, and then it's got lots of little smaller mains going out that then break down further and go out to everybody's individual house. We're starting with the backbone of our transmission system, and over time we want to replace it all, but that's going to take years. Okay, so what is this going to cost us? Oh, I'm jumping ahead. The maintenance program, the first thing that's included in here, is a program that will allow us to paint and maintain our water tower, and then start making yearly payments, and every 10 years they will come back and redo it for us. Now, for those of you who have been coming to these meetings for a while, the water tower account is a specific fund that was set up to collect antenna fees that were being saved to do this. And over the last 12, 13 years, we've accumulated about $900,000 in there. The unfortunate part about that is the cost of painting and upkeep on these water towers has increased over the years. So we were planning on it being about $1 million, and it's closer to $1.5 million. So those first 3 years, okay, I'm getting old, I'm gonna cheat and look on this because I can't see that. Those first 3 years call for payments of $571,000. That is to paint the water tower, take all the rust off, do whatever needs to be done to get it back in good condition. The same company that's doing that is then going to contract with us where we will pay them $97,928 a year, and every 10 years they'll do it. So we will be getting a little bit of a price break because they will be getting that money and holding it for that time. So the total cost of this is about almost 1.8 million, but we've already got 900,000. So some of this is going to have to be financed through the low interest loan when we go out to get it. The second thing the second, third, fourth thing are these water mains that I just identified. We have this big 16-inch main. Matt, help me out if I mess this up. 16, 10, and 8? Or 16, 12, and 10? Anyway, these are 3 large transmission mains that we are currently proposing to be the next thing to be fixed. And why we're taking those is basically the engineer's recommendation, but we went back and we looked at our expense on water main repair over the last 10 years. So 2009 through 2019, on these 3 mains, there were 22 main breaks for a total cost of $1,125,000. So there's been a considerable amount of expense to get these mains, or keep these mains in the condition to provide us with water. And part of the reason why it's so expensive is these are the larger mains, and when something breaks, it's a lot more work, takes a lot more equipment, part of the reasons why they are having breaks is, I know in particular this main here. I don't know how many of you guys remember when it broke in front of MB Bank. One of the sections of the old main that they brought up was stamped on it. The iron was stamped in 1921. So all these mains, older mains, are going on 100 years old. So that's one thing, they're starting to wear out just from age. But if we replace them now, we shouldn't have to worry about this none of us in this room should have to worry about it, is what I'm saying. Okay? These 4 projects have a combined cost of $6 million. Now, the first 2 increases in this water rate increase will produce the necessary income to support the roughly $300,000 a year payment for the next 20 years. So what we're proposing is a low interest rate loan for $6 million that will be paid back over the next 20 years. Future increases, so after the first 2 years, years 3, 4, 5, will be done, something similar will be done. And further projects that we don't have dollar amounts for yet, though, include the Gardner Road water main, which they're estimating about $650,000, the 17th Avenue water main, which is about $1 million, and then start to do the smaller branches off of these main water main, these backbone water mains into residential areas. And there has been some high priority areas already identified where the mains are breaking on a regular basis. Did that get everybody's questions from last time? What's the new questions today? Go ahead.
Is that the end of the presentation?
That's the end of the questions today?
Trustees, does anybody have a question? I have the mic. Anyone?
Tom, you talked about the improvements on basically the painting of the tower. What about the internal workings? Is that going to need some repair or updating?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that question, but Matt is sitting in the back there. Maybe he could shed some light on the contract.
Protection will be reinforced. Obviously, the outside will be clean and painted, so forth and so on. But yeah, it does require some interior work.
Now, is that incorporated into the cost?
It would be. It would be, yeah. So otherwise, we could just get away with a cleaning. But
No, none for me.
Trustee Andrew, none? Okay. I don't have any either, but I'll open it up to the
Okay.
floor now.
Yeah.
Okay. Clerk McGreer?
Thank you. One of the questions that have been asked by several residents at board meetings and just around the neighborhood was the conditions of the alleys just north of Roosevelt from 17th to 25th. And I think you answered the question, basically why we haven't done any work there, because we would have to go back in and resurface what we've already, surfaced just to get to those pipes. So you're saying the 10-inch mains?
I did put that in here.
Yeah, the 10-inch mains are going to be replaced?
Including, because this water main runs directly below that alley, they will
Right.
be resurfacing the alley too at the same
So
time.
thank you for answering that question for the residents, because now they know why we haven't done anything to date on it.
Right.
Will the work be done in order sort of how Broadview was initially developed, so like the Gold Coast and then Hollywood section, et cetera, moving along in those areas? Because that's how the water mains were put in originally. So that's where I think you see the breakage coming out in those kind of areas and that sections of the town.
That's true, but I do not believe that's how they're doing it. And again, Matt, interrupt me if I say anything wrong here. They're more doing it on an analysis of where our breaks are at and what's going on, so that the priority is go find out where the problems are and fix them, and then keep moving down. And logically, what you're saying makes sense, but something that I learned 4 years ago, these mains that were put in 1921, in some cases are better than the mains that were put in the 1950s. If you look at,
Yes.
at Beverly and Harvester that were later additions to the village, they were built right after World War II. And until someone explained this to me, I didn't get it, but during World War II, what was the iron used for? Battleships, tanks.
Right.
They were fighting a major war. After the war, there was a lot of scrap metal, and the iron that they used at that time was of lower quality than they were using 30, 40 years ago, and there's actually higher deterioration on some of the newer pipes than the old ones. So it's a very logical approach that you're taking, but there's other factors in there that have switched it around, and the way the engineers are looking at it is we're going to address problem areas as they come up and then try to replace instead of just Band-Aid it all the time.
Okay, now, and then my other question is this. The previous administration had initially put forth a plan to replace these water mains and to do a lot of this work. And the board at that time shot everything down. Do we have support from this board that will allow this project to go forward?
Well, I'm hoping so. That's why we're here doing this tonight.
Because it is something that's definitely needed.
Well,
I
no,
don't think that it was,
You can keep pushing it down the line, but every year it just keeps costing
Right.
you more money.
and why should we continue paying for maintenance and repair work on something when we can replace it and have new project there? Spend that money and, look at things logically. It's stupid to keep pulling out money to repair something continually, and it's just going to break again and break again.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's not right. So we really should do the, initial building and,
And
Do the
Mr.
new
McGreary
work.
brought up a good price. It's going to cost us more to do today than it would have cost us in 2015, and it will cost us even more in 2025. The price of everything is going up.
I have
Yes, ma'am.
two questions. At the increase, the percentages, would that include the sewer rates as well?
No, ma'am.
So the sewer rates will stay the same, it's just the water rates will increase 4.5 as the following, is that
I'm answering
correct?
that correct, right?
Okay.
Yes, sewer rates
And-
will stay flat.
Okay, at the last presentation, my understanding is that this increase was going to fall on the residents and not on the commercial industrial people who use a lot of the water. And, listen to your presentation, I know that, what you said, that with the first 2 years of increase, it would be able to take care of the debt service for these.
For this,
I understand
right.
that, and I understand the reason for replacing rather than repair. But then why not share the costs if we are, why should the residents subsidize it all?
We're not proposing that the residents subsidize it all.
So are you telling me this is going to be village-wide, or is it the first couple years the residents? Because the last presentation, I heard it was the residents only.
Do you want to address it?
So,
So what we presented was the increases that would affect the residents. And so we didn't, because when you look at the commercial and industrial, their rates are different, so their percentages would be different. So what was displayed in the presentation was the rates that would be effective to the residents. We did not mention that the residents would only be affected by the increase, because commercial and industrial use more water than residents because they're much larger and their needs are much greater. But so to clarify, what is presented, the percentage increase is what would be effective to the residents. So that's what we displayed because the residents are here, and so we would look at industrial and commercial, and their rates would be slightly, their rates would be different because their usage is different, and so the amount that we would have to go up on theirs, on the percentage that we would need to go up would be different because they have a much larger volume. So.
But it's going to be an exponential increase for them as well, because you can't just increase one section.
No, we're not, but I'm saying, so, but what we looked at and what we displayed historically has been the rates for just the residents. So that's what we just wanted to make sure that we clarify. But everybody will bear the burden.
I understand it, but I think there's,
Mute your mic because we're live at home. So if you can wait, and I'll bring you guys the mics.
and I do understand the explanation, but here's my concern as a resident. When you're talking about cash flow and what monies you have in the water fund, that also includes commercial and industrial, that tells us what we can repair. So I would like to see, well then, I understand what you're gonna raise us, what are you proposing for those groups, and how that is going to boost us, in terms of our profit margins and what more work that we'll be able to do. I think that's important as a resident.
That is reflected in there.
Well,
Yeah.
it's hard to see, so if
Right.
it is, I didn't see it.
Right. We are going to meet with the large users individually and discuss their needs and how it'll affect them, because it's a catch-22. if we throw a bunch of extra cost on them, they can pack up and move. And not only then do we lose their water sales, they are also some of our largest taxpayers. So their property taxes are really high. So we need to be very aware of our effects on them, and we're going to have the discussions with those large water use peoples. It's not so much the commercials; it's the industrial. I mean, there are really 2 or 3 that account for a abnormal amount of our consumption.
And as a resident, I do understand. Okay, as a resident, I do understand that, but I think that should at least be said and stated like you did, and also put into your,
Put in
we're going to a
presentation.
minimum because of,
Right.
the cost, whatever. I do understand
Yeah.
that, and I think that's important.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the residents at all? Director Hicks, anything you want to add on? Okay, I do have a question, and I know it's directed, I know you mentioned it in one of the water losses was regarding the meters. And I know now we're changing the meters over, so I'm not sure who can answer the question, if it's our village administrator, Ms. Jones, or our director, Matt Ames, if where we're at in the meters, because I know we've rolled this program out, and you guys had certain stages where you're going to be able to have a completion. So where we're at with the meters.
Ms. Jones, do you want to respond? We've got, I believe we are. I believe at the last department report, monthly report, we reported that about approximately 1,800 meters have been installed in the 2,400 homes that we have. So the final notices, again, will be going out once they finish with the schedules that they've already have booked for the households, but those that are non-responsive will receive the final letter and water service interruption. So, and Tom, if I can just kind of, so the decision, so Ms. Gordon, you talked about the way that the village was developed, and you're absolutely correct, except probably within the last 30 years, 80 acres, all of their 4-inch mains were replaced to 6-inch mains. So hence, the project on 17th Avenue is the last remaining 4-inch sections of mains that we have in town. But the way the decision was made was simply by emergencies. So we noticed that breaks on our arterial mains, you can liken it to a jugular, a main, artery within your body. When that ruptured, we were at critical states with our tank. So obviously, those that have been around here may remember a couple boil water orders, and those were the results of breaks that resulted off of the mains that are proposed to be replaced on Roosevelt Road and 25th Avenue. To the point of the main replacements and the north side alleys going west to 25th Avenue, and to Clerk McGreer's question about the alleys in disrepair. So we purposely left those alleys untouched simply because we knew we had to excavate and take care of the water mains underneath. So that's how we came up to that. And what we did do, we tracked water main breaks throughout the village of Broadview. We had a map, and we had color-coded pins that we would indicate for each year. And if you looked at the map, we probably got it archived, a photograph or something. The breaks occurred all over, all over. So, I mean, you literally could close your eyes and point and pick a spot. So after these transmissions are done, we are going to have to systematically start replacing the residential mains at some point for future projects. So that's all I wanted to add.
Is that map still on your wall map with all the pins in it?
I don't think so, but I've got a photograph of it.
Yeah, so to actually see how many water main breaks happened in this town 5-6 years ago, it was unbelievable. It looks like someone loaded a bunch of pins in a shotgun and shot the map of Broadview. They were everywhere.
I do want to thank Public Works Director, Mr. Matt Ames, for being present here and giving some more additional insight, because this is something that is important for our community, because obviously water is a basic need. So I'm glad that you're here tonight, Mr. Ames, so you can answer a few more questions in case they come up, and you're the expert over there at Public Works, so you know what you've been dealing with, and the water mains, and giving us a number. Was there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Redmond, here you go.
I'm not real sure which ones are residential mains or industrial or commercial. I know by streets, but I'm wondering, something to think about if you have thought about this, as you do replace residential mains, could there be some type of offering for residents that want to change their water pipe,
Their service.
the service, at the same time you're going in? You know what I mean? And at the service, I know it would be a service to residents, but it would be that would be the time to do it. Just thinking, I don't know.
That's a good idea.
I'm
Yeah,
just
that's a
thinking,
good
and I'm
idea.
just
We
wondering if
will
that's a
take that
consideration.
suggestion into advisement, like a 50-50 type program. Yeah.
I mean, I just, at the time,
Yeah.
it's we're talking about it, it's something to think about.
Not at this time, but it is a great idea.
Any other questions, comments? Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Trustee Abraham. I just wanted to say thank you guys for working diligently on getting the presentation together for us to get the information. But just know that we have considered residential, commercial, and industrial, but the purpose of us having these meetings was so that we can educate the residents on how we look at the increases over a number of years. So it's not to exclude the other colleagues or the other business partners that's impacted by the water increase, but it's a different conversation. So if we start intertwining the conversations, then you get confused. And we don't want anybody to be confused on what's impacted. Right now, we're talking about the residents and how it impacts the average resident. The business, the commercial, and the industrial conversation is a different conversation. So it didn't make sense for us to combine the two, even though we know that everybody is going to be impacted by it. So that was the reason why we segregated the partners in this, whether it was a residential, the commercial, or industrial. So I wanted to be real clear on why we decided to have the finance meeting, host these meetings for us, for this water discussion. But it's going to impact all of us. It's just the conversation is different, and it'll probably be over your head and over my head, and we need to keep it in layman terms where the average resident can really understand the impact that's going to impact them moving forward in the next 5 years or so. So we appreciate your comments and your questions. We did take consideration on the questions that came from last time to incorporate it into this presentation, so that's why we have a more polished presentation, and hopefully Trustee Abraham and the Finance Committee will make a recommendation to the board to move forward, but we still have a little bit more work to do. So when we bring it to the board, we'll have the full package as it relates to residential, commercial, and industrial, and then that'll be the conversation that you all will be able to hear where that increase is, because one thing that we standing on is we're going to stand on accountability and integrity and being upfront and transparent with the public, regardless if it's a resident, commercial, or business partner. So that's all I have, Trustee.
Was there any other questions from any of our residents, trustees? Are we good? Can we reconvene up at our...
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Convene up there? Do you needed to make announcements? Yes. You want to hold on to this? It's still live. It's still on. Lights, so you can see us. take a few minutes. Pardon me? I know, right? Oh, you guys do have their shirts on, okay. Okay, again, I'm glad the trustees are back up here, and Director Hicks and Director Hood. I want to comment, definitely a well-put-together presentation showing the history and putting it together, and then also showing the projects that we want to put together. So, is there any other questions from the trustees to our finance team here, so that, next board meeting?
I don't have any questions, I have comments.
Go ahead.
I think we need to get the residents involved with, and I know they have been, but to continue with the new meters in their homes
Okay,
for the usage, and we can determine if there's any leaks going on or usage, and that needs to be, we need to get all the residents involved in that.
okay. Are you looking for a report of something generated from?
Oh, I don't know if we can get a report on it. I think we have to give it a little bit more time, but I think at some point we gotta push this forward
Okay,
so we can get everybody involved in it.
well, let me
It
ask.
doesn't cost anything.
Exactly,
I just have, I'm having mine put in Monday.
okay. Well, then let me ask, our village administrator, I hate to put you on the spot, Ms. Jones, but is it possible that kind of information where we're at with the, how many have been installed?
How
Is
many
that
been
what you're
installed?
looking
How many
for?
more
A
we
number?
have? We're
Is it
about-
possible we can get that information?
Sounds like we're about 50% right now.
We have done that, our director Ames, gives that information in his report every,
Okay,
Okay,
where we added, how many we have installed.
okay.
We do get that on a regular basis.
okay.
So we just have to keep putting it out there and getting the residents.
Yes.
Okay.
And we also gonna put it, in our newsletter too.
Okay.
Now, is there a time frame for the
Right.
free installations? Is there gonna be a time frame for the free installations?
Like a final end date?
Where they're
Yeah.
gonna,
Well, we're sending out the final letters for those that haven't transitioned,
Okay.
haven't gotten installed, yes, the final letters are going out.
okay.
I guess the next one, how's the follow-up been? I mean, obviously, I know we've been getting some good responses. There's probably little stragglers here and there, because I think everybody's pretty much embraced it, because it's based on the resident being at home, correct? There you go. So that's part of the
Yeah.
situation.
They do offer some Saturday days as well.
I'm scheduled for 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Pardon?
8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
All right, so there we go. 2 more.
Okay, is that it,
That's all,
trustee
yeah.
Tierney? Trustee Singer? None? Any comments from you gentlemen on this?
Actually, could I ask you a question? Are we to the point yet where we can actually see the information from the, so we know if someone's toilet's running? Yeah, see, this is one of the big advantages that has, we haven't talked about a lot, but things can happen where people get extremely large water bills. One of the big culprits is getting a flapper stuck on your toilet, and it's just running water constantly for a month until you get that $200 water bill. You don't even know about it. We see that right away. And as we can get this information, the type of reports you're talking about, John, we can actually preemptively call up
Right.
Tom Hood and say, hey, is there something wrong with your toilet? You
Right.
need to look around your house. You're using an abnormal amount of water. So hopefully, this will also become a benefit for our residents too, in the sense that we'll be able to catch, I won't say they're not broken things, but we will be able to identify problems quicker and get them resolved quicker.
Be a little more proactive.
There you go,
Proactive, right, instead of
proactive.
reactive.
Good. Any other comments? Director Hicks, anything? Okay. I don't have anything else, other than, I think it was, again, I want to compliment, definitely a great follow-up that you guys have done with this, and I think it is very important, and the information going out, and I hope our residents at home, that they have a full understanding now, and as far as any other questions, I think we pretty much covered everything in the 2 times we've done this presentation. So I think it was, again, very well done, gentlemen. Thank you for putting it together. Madam Mayor, you made mention that you had some announcements you wanted to make.
Yes, thank you. So, Friday, Lindop School is having a back-to-school parade for those that want to participate. They'll line up probably in the school parking lot and parade through the community. So those that want to come out and get the students off to a great school year, you're more than welcome to do so. Also on Saturday, they're going to have their barbecue over at the school. So they'll have some festivities going on. We can meet some of the staff there. My office will have a presence there to welcome the students and the families back to school and send some well wishes to the staff for a great, amazing school year for Lindop. Also, all the information can be found on Lindop's website, www.lindop.com.net. Also, tomorrow night, Congressman Danny Davis will be here in the Village Hall. Mayor Hermanick from the Village of North Riverside and myself will be the co-host for a conversation on his town hall meeting as it relates to federal concerns and issues that's coming out. I highly encourage for you, those that's watching, to encourage you or your neighbors to come hear the conversation and ask some of the questions. We are going to ask Congressman to give us some time to be able to have a dialogue with some questions and concerns that address some of the issues that we face here in Broadview, and one of the things at a federal level that impacts us is the railroad. We are having some issues with the railroad not repairing it in a timely fashion, and then with the horn that's being blared in the middle of the night. So those are some conversation that hopefully he can get us in the right direction to get us some relief in Broadview. So hopefully tomorrow night it will be an open dialogue. But we welcome Congressman Davis to come and give us some input on what's taking place at a federal level. So I encourage you all to come out tomorrow night at 7 o'clock right here in Village Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You want back to school?
Yeah, the back to school.
Back to school bash for proviso?
That should be on the screen.
So we are starting to partner more with our schools. So District 209, and that represents, our home district is Proviso East. Broadview Home District is Proviso East. But we support District 209 because it represents PMSA. We do have students over that live in Broadview that attend PMSA and over at Proviso West. And on Friday at 3:30, they're going to do a back-to-school bash to welcome their students back to school, and I will be over there as well. So those that want to meet me there to give those students some well wishes, please come do so. I think it's important we always support our elementary school students for great success, but I think it's just as important for us to start embracing the high schoolers in their endeavors as they go through these challenging times. We've had a couple of students that have had suicidal that has taken place in our community, not in Broadview per se, but in the township. So we just want to make sure that we uplift and encourage our young people that even though challenges may arise, that you do have a great support system as it relates to making sure that all of our students are well-rounded in a healthy environment. So we want to show support for those students in District 209 under the leadership of Dr. Rodriguez.
Is that it? Thank you, Madam Mayor, for those announcements. I also have a few before we adjourn. We have some job openings within our community, and again, I know we patronize our businesses, and they also want to support us and our community here as well. Job openings are at Target, Dollar Tree, Ross, Marshall's, and Mr. Submarine that just opened. So I hope everybody had a chance to go over there and welcome Mr. Submarine into the community. So he's been quite busy. He's got some good hours, and I've been there a few times and just very welcoming. So I'm glad we have him in our community. So just at that, did you have something to say, Clerk?
Census Bureau is also hiring. Census 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here,
They have jobs.
here. Give him. Why don't we just pass him the mic for
Thank
that?
you, Trustee. I would just wanted to also mention the Census Bureau is hiring for the
Okay.
2020 decennial. You can go to census2020.gov, and they do have a job link there.
Thank you.
Check it out, and they have more jobs that are be coming on down the line, so keep in touch with it.
Okay, and I understand, Mayor, you're going to be having, for the census here in our town, we're going to have a plan of action as well? Yes. Okay. Okay, all right, good, thank you, thank you. I believe that's it. At this time, I'd like to call for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Thank you, residents. Well, I should say all in favor. All in favor? Aye. I want to thank everyone for being present. I like to thank our residents that are at our home that are viewing this, because it is very important information. Again, you know, I'm grateful that Madam Mayor has allowed the Finance Committee to have these meetings once a month to provide the important information, again, because this is important regarding our budget, our finances. You know, it's our money. You know, we live here, so we all have a vested interest. So these are important meetings. So definitely want to thank my fellow trustees for supporting this and being here at the meetings. And to the residents, I thank you for your questions. I thank you for interacting, and you can see how our meetings are being run where, you know, the questions, we don't have that formal where you have to put it in, submit it. I like that we can ask the presenters, okay? Other than that, that's all I have. We're going to adjourn. Thank you, guys. Have a good night at 8:26. All right, we're